He was not nervous. He was not startled. He walked into the room, and something that should have happened did not. His heart rate stayed steady. His hands did not move. He felt nothing that most people would call fear. He was a man in his 50s, living a largely ordinary life in Iowa. He held a job. He had a family. By most visible measures, nothing appeared wrong. But researchers who studied him over several decades noted something that made his case one of the most documented in modern neuroscience. He had sustained bilateral damage to a structure deep inside his brain called the amygdala, both sides, completely. And as a result, according to published case records, he appeared to have lost the ability to feel fear entirely. The case was first described in formal medical literature in the early 1990s. He is referred to in research papers by the initials SM. His identity has been protected throughout decades of study. But the science his case produced changed how medicine understood the human brain. SM had a rare genetic condition called Urbach-Wiethe disease. It is also documented in the literature as lipoid proteinosis. The condition causes calcium deposits to form in soft tissue throughout the body. In his case, those deposits targeted the amygdalae, two small, almond-shaped structures, one on each side of the brain. By the time researchers began studying him systematically, both amygdalae had been largely destroyed. The damage was not sudden. It had accumulated slowly, across years, without obvious outward signs. And yet the effect was precise, and according to researchers, profound. Physicians at the University of Iowa, led by neurologist Antonio Damasio and later by researcher Justin Feinstein, documented SM's responses across a wide range of situations that would ordinarily provoke fear in most people. He was shown footage of snakes and spiders. He reported no distress. He was taken to a haunted house attraction. He walked through it, and according to published accounts, laughed. He stopped at one point to examine a prop. He did not flinch. He visited an exotic pet store and without hesitation reached out to handle large tarantulas. Staff reportedly had to stop him. He had, on multiple occasions in his everyday life, been approached by strangers in threatening circumstances. He described these events afterward with a kind of neutral curiosity that researchers found difficult to reconcile with what had happened. What was absent was not just the response to external threat. Researchers noted that SM also seemed unable to recognize fear in the facial expressions of others. He could identify other emotions: happiness, sadness, disgust, surprise. But fear in the faces of people around him registered as unfamiliar. He could not reliably name it. The amygdala, researchers had long proposed, does not simply generate fear. It reads it in others. And in the absence of that structure, both functions, the feeling and the recognition, appeared to dissolve together. But here's what made this case different from everything doctors expected. Fear, it turned out, was not entirely gone. It had simply moved somewhere else. Justin Feinstein and his colleagues at the University of Iowa published findings in 2013 that altered the field's understanding of what the amygdala actually does. They exposed SM and two other patients with the same bilateral amygdala damage to carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide inhalation at elevated concentrations is known to trigger panic in most people. It is a purely internal stimulus. No external threat, no social cue, nothing to see or hear. It works directly on the brainstem. SM panicked. He reported fear, not vague discomfort, genuine acute panic, the same response documented in control subjects without amygdala damage. The findings, published in Nature Neuroscience, suggested something medicine had not fully considered. The amygdala may be responsible for detecting external threats, the predator, the stranger, the dark room, but the ancient circuitry that responds to threats from within the body, suffocation, the loss of oxygen, appears to operate through a different pathway entirely. The brainstem and associated structures can generate fear without the amygdala. They do not need it. The brain, researchers proposed, has more than one fear system, and only one of them was missing in SM. This distinction matters enormously for how medicine understands conditions like post-traumatic stress disorder, panic disorder, and phobia. For decades, treatment research had focused heavily on the amygdala as the central structure involved in fear responses. SM's case, and the 2013 CO2 findings specifically, suggested that the amygdala is not a fear generator. It may be a threat detector, a structure that scans the environment and signals danger from the outside world. Remove it, and external fear disappears. But the body's internal alarm system, the one that fires when the lungs are starving for oxygen, appears to run on older wiring that predates, evolutionarily, the amygdala itself. What researchers cannot yet fully explain is why SM's internal fear response remained intact while his external fear response was abolished. They can describe the two systems. They can demonstrate that both exist, but the precise anatomical and chemical boundary between them remains an active area of investigation. What triggers one system and not the other in patients without amygdala damage is still not completely understood. And then came a finding that changed how physicians understood this. SM's life, by his own reported account, was not one defined by suffering. He described his day-to-day experience as largely unremarkable. He engaged with researchers openly over many years without apparent distress about being studied. But published accounts note that his life had also been punctuated by serious incidents, encounters that, in people with intact fear systems, would have prompted avoidance or escape. He had not avoided them. He had walked into them, or stayed in them, longer than was safe. Fear, medicine has long understood, is not only an unpleasant sensation, it is information. It tells the body to stop, to turn, to run. Without it, the world does not become easier to navigate. It becomes harder, because the signal that tells most people where the edges are is simply not there. Urbach-Wiethe disease itself is extraordinarily rare. Fewer than 400 cases have been reported in the medical literature worldwide. Of those, bilateral amygdala calcification, resulting in the degree of damage seen in SM, is rarer still. His case has been studied longer and more extensively than almost any other in the neuroscience of emotion. And yet the questions his brain has generated have not diminished. They have multiplied. What SM's case reveals is something medicine is still working to absorb. The brain does not have a single fear system that can be found and fixed. It has layered systems with different evolutionary origins, responding to different categories of threat. A tumor, a lesion, a genetic condition can silence one layer entirely, while leaving another completely intact. That means our understanding of what fear is, where it lives, and what removes it is still incomplete. SM is not fearless in the way the word is popularly used. He is missing a specific kind of fear, the kind that reads the room, reads the face, reads the shadow on the wall, the kind that is learned, or social, or environmental, the kind the amygdala was built to process. He still had something older, something the body keeps for itself. He walked into the room, and nothing happened that should have happened. His heart stayed steady, His hands stayed still. For decades, researchers have tried to understand what that absence truly means. What they found was not a man without fear. They found a man whose fear lived somewhere medicine had not thought to look. If your ability to sense danger from the world around you simply vanished, would you know what you had lost? This video is based on real, publicly documented medical case reports and is intended for educational and storytelling purposes. It is not medical advice. If you or someone you know is experiencing similar symptoms, please consult a licensed physician. Medical mysteries. True cases every week.